What's up? This is Charlie with 4BZ Truth. I'm just leaving my work. Just got done talking to one of my coworkers, and oh my goodness, she is I guess you could say she's into witchcraft. She's into new agey type stuff as far as she was just saying the age of Aquarius. We're in the age of Aquarius, and or paganism. That's kind of what now the thing that is really starting to fascinate me with some of the I'm realizing when I actually talk to somebody on a level that is not judgmental, that is open-minded and not quick to shut somebody down, I can find a common ground with them and hash out some of the issues. You know, now when I'm coming from a paradigm of Christianity and this culture that basically says that I need to not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever, it kind of leads me to question what that actually means, because I start wondering if Christians nowadays are even believers, because they only believe the traditions that they're raised into. They don't really understand the fullness of what it is God's revealing to us. And when I say God, I'm talking about the Creator, or the one who has given us life, or whatever, or who's created life. Now, I try to avoid getting too deep into the Christian perspective, because I'm really testing all perspectives, but I'm contrasting Christianity with this New Age philosophy, and I'm coming to realize that this age of Aquarius is interesting to me, because everything's coalescing to a head, and we're actually in the last days, as Revelation says. Now, what are the last days? You could say in Matthew 24, the disciples asked, what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And you know, based on what Global Witness Derek was saying, he was saying that there's going to be a mass awakening, or an enlightenment of the Christ consciousness, and we're all little Christ. Now, I don't know what that even means. All I know is a lot of these kind of things that, you know, like, let's define our terms. Let's find out what, you know, each other are actually saying, and kind of realize that there's things that are consistent, and, you know, they're paralleling each other from different perspectives. Just they have different definitions when you try to explain. And so I think that in a lot of ways, my Christianity that I grew up into has taught me to isolate myself from the world. And unfortunately, a lot of the traditions that I was raised into are not necessarily biblical. So I'm starting to wonder if this enemy, or this Satan or devil, has corrupted, you know, the Protestants' perspectives. I say Protestant as the protesters of Catholicism. They are, you know, they were interested in finding truth, and you know, the Catholics were isolating people from anything else. They were killing people that didn't follow the narrative that they presented. And it's crazy to me that when I look at patterns, I start to see that people are, you know, when they're following religions often isolate themselves. Now, when I look at the Bible, when it talks about there being a world religion at the end of the age, and it's actually going to be a corrupted, deceived church that's under the false prophet or whatever. And now, if that's true, I look for patterns and I try to figure out who in this world could be like this false prophet. Now, the false prophet was also described as a dragon or something like that, I think. Like, there's several beasts in Revelation 12, I believe. It talks about the 7-headed beast with 10 horns. It talks about the red dragon in the heavens that goes to devour the woman with the 12 stars on her head. And then there's there's all these metaphors to explain these government systems, in my view. And it's not just my view. It says that these are governments. If you reflect back to Daniel, it talks about the beasts in, I believe, chapter 7. Talks about the beast that comes out of the ocean, or the many waters or whatever. And obviously, you kind of have to understand these hidden esoteric type things that the Bible is projecting out there. I mean, when I say esoteric, people might say, oh my gosh, you're talking like esoteric, like secret societies or whatever. And no, there's hidden knowledge that's in the Bible. And he says, Jesus even tells his disciples that or the disciples are like, why are all these things spoken in parables? And he says, because some will not understand in parables. Or he's talking about the Pharisees won't understand because they're not in tune with the way it's actually intended to be read. And so these parables, I'm like flipping out right now. The parables are throughout the Bible, and there's things that are in the Bible that aren't necessarily explained. Some things are explained. You have like when they say that the 7-headed beast with 10 horns is like the world government. And I believe the dragon with the 2 horns is talking about the Antichrist and the false prophet. So each horn represents one of the personalities. Now, and I say personalities being that it could actually mean a type and shadow. So each of these horns represent a certain power, you might say. I don't really believe in the individual Antichrist anymore. I believe the Antichrist, and it could be an individual that is the head of state, so to speak. This individual Antichrist could just be like the president, or it could be a prime minister, it could be a pope or whatever. But it's a body of like a state that is the Antichrist, or the 2 witnesses. So there's a lot of things that describe these individuals, but they're actually representing a body. So if you actually look at these things that are like parables, the book of Revelation actually is the revealing, the apocalypto, the revealing of the end of the age. So the end of the age, according to my friend from work, says that the last age that we came from was the age of Pisces, which is she says that the ictus was a representation of the Pisces age, and it started when Jesus basically ushered it in. So there was 2,000 years of the Pisces age. Now I'm very aware that the Catholic Church, the popes wear these hats that look like fish heads, and I believe that there is a lot of hidden paganistic type things that are in the church as well, the Catholic Church particularly. Now, I do think a lot of the churches, even in the Protestant churches, have paganism wrapped into them. I'm not going to get into the freaking holidays or all that, but clearly the holidays have pagan roots as well. Now, the question that I often run into is this pagan concept I often revolt against, because that's my nature that I was raised into. I was raised to believe that pagans were actually of the devil. So now, as I'm thinking about it more now, I'm starting to realize that paganism actually is one of the oldest esoteric, hidden type secret religions, you could say. But then there is also not just the secret aspects of it, but the outward aspects as well. But Satan was supposedly the one that's supposed to infiltrate the church too, like the wheat and the tares. So I was thinking about what I'm going to name my YouTube video before I started this, and I started thinking I'm going to name this Torn Between Two Worlds, because you always hear me talking about this alternative Earth theory, or I don't even want to use the word flat Earth, but I'm actually thinking that it's just another aspect of this matrix that we're in. And when I say matrix, I'm actually referring to a kind of a simulation, almost like the movie The 13th Floor. We're stuck in this realm or this dimension, and we're here, according to the New Agers, to have enlightenment, or according to the Bible, it says we're here to learn eventually how to serve God, or obey His commandments, or accept Jesus or the Christ, to become transformed, or being born again. So the thing that throws me for a loop is there's so many flipping patterns that I start noticing between these different religions. Now, obviously, there's some truth in everything, and all you need is a little bit of lies to corrupt a loaf. But I start seeing lies in my own foundation, and then I think, wait, if I have some lies in mine, does that mean my whole loaf is corrupted as well? Well, that's why I'm trying to root out everything. I need to be cleansed of this indoctrination that I've acquired over the years. I'm willing to admit that I've been taught by my whatever authoritative figure in my life, and so I've appealed to that authority, and I always appealed to that authority up until this point that I started realizing there are other perspectives out there. So if I contrast other perspectives, I start realizing, oh my goodness, there's other ways to look at this world and this reality. Now, in light of this being torn between two worlds, I'm going to park for a minute because I don't want to get to my destination yet. I want to finish this video. if I'm torn between two worlds, I'm going to be trying to figure out what direction I need to go. But as I'm thinking more about it, I'm starting to realize that maybe these worlds are blending together. And I've had people tell me that the coming of the end of the age is actually the worlds that are blending together, or the revealing of the new world. Which is interesting to me, because the book of Revelation talks about this heaven and earth passing away, and there's going to be a new heaven and new earth. So maybe we pass into the new earth, so to speak, a new heaven and new earth, or new reality, and everything else is going to pass away that we came from. So that could be a metaphor of a transition that will take place here. And then it also kind of makes me wonder about this, if anyone's ever read about the New Jerusalem, I think it was Revelation 20 or 21 or something. It talks about this description of the New Jerusalem. Now, the interesting thing about this New Jerusalem is it's built with the stones that are given. These are figurative stones that are given to each of his saints. And it'll build this figurative city. And now, most of the people that I know believe the New Jerusalem is a physical building, but I liken it to the hold on, let me catch my thoughts here. So the New Jerusalem is it's a figurative building that is the temple. It's a comparison to who we are. Or we have the temple, or we are the temple of God, or whatever, and He dwells within us. And anybody that has gotten to this point of the video, I just want to say I appreciate that you're willing to hear what I have to say about it. I believe it's a very deep thought process. And if you don't know anything about either of the perspectives that I'm coming from, I feel that they're two necessary perspectives to analyze and try to contrast. Now, let me finish my thought on the New Jerusalem. This building, or this city that's actually coming down from heaven, if you actually go into it, it'll describe that this is a great city that has streets of gold, pearly gates, and it's a description of the heaven that we understand. So if New Jerusalem is coming out of the heavens onto the earth, that says to me that heaven is on earth. So people that don't understand this need to fully understand my perspective here. Heaven is on earth. But when I think of the afterlife, or the near-death experiences, we actually do go on to something. Our bodies will pass away. And we will move on. Our consciousness will move on. I'm a firm believer that our consciousness transcends the body, and we will move on to something else. Now, there's a lot of figurative, metaphoric type, parables in the Bible. Now, one of my friends talks about, from a universal perspective, that the Bible is really just explaining what's going to happen on the earth. So anything that comes afterwards is just kind of up in the air. Like, all these meanings were actually intended to be so that we live a fulfilled life. Like in 1 John, it says, I tell you these things so that your joy may be full. He's like, if you are obedient, your joy will be full. It's interesting because people draw conclusions about perspective, and they'll always filter it through their paradigm, which is fine. I don't have a problem with bias or paradigms or whatever. But when you draw conclusions too quickly, you might realize that your conclusions are based on a false premise. So I want to leave you with this, that we are equipped to analyze some depth about this world that you can't even fathom. The deeper I get into this, the more I try to understand about all this, the more I realize that I am made to dig. And the deeper I dig, the more I feel like I'm having a spiritual connection with God. That might sound crazy, but the people that are uber religious, Christians or whatever, or Mormons or whoever you are that is a very religious person, you're going to continue to filter through your understandings or your paradigm, and you're probably going to look at me like a freaking heretic. That's fine. I'm not trying to present myself as a heretic. But I'm realizing that when it comes to prophets, and there was the Bible has a canon, many different canons. I have a Catholic Bible. I don't know if you can read that. It looks backwards. But I don't follow the Catholic Bible. I just freaking carry it around to show people that there's different canons. There's have you ever heard of Maccabees or Tobit or Judith? Those are different books that are not in the traditional, like King James or something. People will try to say, we have been given these teachings by our predecessors and we need to hold true to these teachings. And I'm just trying to figure out what it is that they were trying to project to us, or pass down to us. Did they tell us to be freaking isolated from all forms of information and knowledge so that we could keep that one perspective alive? Maybe. But does that mean that it's right? Does that mean that God told us to isolate ourselves and try to limit the amount of information that we're taking on or taking into our mind? I feel like there's so many angles to this that maybe there's no authoritative perspective coming from all these other angles, but what is authoritative? I mean, how do we come to these conclusions about what authoritative actually is? I'm passionate about learning, and I'm passionate about getting down to the bottom of this. I feel it's very important. The implications are very vast and very great. I feel like the closer I get to understanding this, the closer I get to God. I mean, I feel like God wanted me to go down this road. I have another guy at work that hears me talk about this stuff, and he's like, I'm a Christian, and I just feel like the farther down these rabbit holes you go, the more it's kind of a waste of time, don't you think? And I'm like, well, I guess it just depends on if your perspective is correct or not. Maybe that's just my venture because that's what was presented to me. Maybe I'm just, when they talk about each member of the body has its function, maybe I'm the brain of the body and I just need to figure these things out. Maybe I'm not a hand or a foot. I want to figure these things out because that's the hand that I was dealt, and I need to figure these things out. I have a feeling that a lot of people that actually listen to this kind of stuff, they're dealt the same hand. I feel like they're given the same responsibilities to hash these things out and try to figure them out so that we can reveal to other people. We are the revealers of truth. Who else was a revealer of truth? John. He wrote the book of Revelations. He revealed. So I want to be another John. I want to reveal the truth to the world. I'm passionate for truth. But I'm passionate about testing all angles to see if they're true. And testing authorities, testing if the next step is going to fall on flat, solid ground. Because there's a lot of variables to consider. I'm not just freaking jumping into some bandwagon. I'm trying to figure these things out in depth to where people are going to probably call me a heretic and a thumbs down or whatever, but I still think that this is my journey, my venture. I'm looking for patterns of the evidence, patterns of the reality that we live in. Because I want to see, I'm not going to reject evidence. I'm going to finish with one more thought. I'm sorry that I'm like dragging this out, but, when you're in school, they teach you what they want to teach you, and they test you on how well you absorb the information. And I'm very fond of science. I feel like it's important to understand the depths of this reality. But when it comes to discussing things outside of that narrative, I'm treated like I'm a stupid idiot. But I think that is a part of the plan to, get people to feel stupid for thinking outside of the box. And if they're doing that nowadays, and they did it like before, I think they're going to continue to try to pound their narrative into our heads. And who's to say that narrative wasn't infiltrated in the church as well? And we are only supposed to have one perspective. And if you venture outside of that perspective, you're going to be ousted. You're going to be freaking treated like you're stupid or you're a heretic or whatever. I don't know. I'm cautious of that. I don't want to be a heretic. I don't want to mislead anybody either. I pray that God, uses my words to reveal and not, turn people away from Him. I say Him as God. I believe God's Spirit, and I believe that people don't understand how to wrap their head around that. So I'm limited, but my perception of God is that He's the all, the one, the I am, and He's the Almighty. He's the all-powerful, or whatever. And I want to connect with the all, the Creator. It's crazy to me. It's crazy that we can actually do the will of the Father, the Father of life, the Father of creation. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want this. Crazy. That's crazy to me. It's crazy that people are so quick to reject it. If you're an atheist and you're still listening to this, God bless you. Anyways, I gotta get going for now. I have to meet my wife and her family. But, I have a lot of love in my heart for people, and I love the fact that I have more subscribers. I feel blessed that people are interested to hear what I have to say, and I'm very honored and privileged to be able to have a forum where I can talk about stuff. So, you know, I love you guys a lot, and I hope that you can, you know, send me a message. And if I don't get back to you, I apologize. I'm actually very busy usually, and I read your messages, and I try to understand your perspectives. I do like having deeper intellectual conversations, but it's hard to do over messaging, texting, or whatever. So, but just feel free to send me your thoughts, and I'll try to get back to you, and just continue to venture down the road of understanding and stand firm. Anyways, we'll talk to you later. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want. So, I'll talk to you later. All right, bye.